We are going to follow the money.
Everything you need to know can be understood with this simple phrase: follow the money. And believe me, that's what's happened.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money.
Welcome to College Sports Follow the Money, an all-new podcast diving into the critical issues surrounding the big business of college sports. I'm Andrew Monaco, joined by former president of Texas A&M University and former chancellor at the University of Missouri, Dr. Bowen Loftin, and former vice president and general manager of Fox Sports Southwest, Jon Heidtke. From NIL to the transfer portal and opt-outs, to the college football playoff, conference realignment, and more, we tackle the key issues facing college athletics today and into the future.
I need to feel you, Jerry! Show me the money! Jerry, you better yell! Show me the money! Show me the money!
We welcome you to another episode. It is episode 90, College Sports Follow the Money, and it is presented by Holistic Planning, along with Dr. Bowen Loftin, with Jon Heidtke. I'm Andrew Monaco, and on this episode, if you remember two numbers, 24 and 16, we're going to refer to those two numbers the whole time. Howdy, gentlemen. Good to be back with you.
Pardon me a second here.
Yep.
There we go. Stops my phone here.
Yep.
Okay, we're all set, guys.
You got it. We'll do this again. Howdy, we welcome you to another episode of College Sports Follow the Money. It is episode number 90, and it's presented by Holistic Planning with Dr. Bowen Loftin, with Jon Heidtke. I'm Andrew Monaco. If you take anything away from this episode, it's these two numbers, 24 and 16. We talked about 76 in our last episode. That was for the NCAA men's basketball tournament. Now we're talking about the college football playoff. Dr. Loftin, that's what it's coming down to. You're going to side with either the 24 or the 16.
I mean, it won't be my decision, thankfully, but I find it interesting the ACC caved completely, in spite of how they were treated. I mean, look what they were, how they were handled by the Big Ten with all of the changes last year, and all of a sudden they're coming along and saying, "Well, we think the Big Ten's the right place to be with, so we'll go with 24." Sankey is being extremely careful, shall we say. 16 is the number he's put up many times now, but yeah, he does say that he's not enamored of a given number right now. He's willing to talk about how this goes forward, but to do it slowly. I found though his last comment when he was interviewed by The Athletic to be extraordinarily interesting. He says football was not meant to be a tournament sport. I thought that was very interesting. But I think Jon needs to weigh in here, because what's it all about, guys? It's about following the money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think, again, that you talk about the number. I think why 16 is gaining, or 24 is gaining such a number, is any playoff plan that now goes over 16 games reopens the television negotiations. So at 16 stays the same. And if you look at the current TV partners, you've got ESPN, who has, the SEC. They don't really want to see it go beyond 16, because that's going to open up more competition and create more expenses for them in a network right now, who's trying to balance all their other NFL potential increase, the new NBA increase. They're in a pretty good place with the collegiate sports right now, if those contracts stay in place up until when they start reopening again in the 2032, 2033 time period. So if you look at the Big Ten, their primary television partner is Fox. Fox would love to get more games and be part of that CFP playoff strategy. And again, a larger tournament is going to open up more games for them and enhance their ability to program their network. Particularly they're looking for more Friday night games. I mean, at Fox is what we've done there. They basically turned that over to their entertainment program is basically 3 days of sports over the weekend. And I think, again, if you look back in history, when these big sea changes happen, You go all the way back to the Sports Broadcasting Act, which gets a lot of conversation these days. I don't think anybody's truly reading it right for what it was originally intended to do and the problems that they think it can or cannot solve. Then in 1983, you had the University of Oklahoma and Georgia go out and sue the NCAA for the CFA deal to allow the conferences to get more games on the game, which I think worked out great. But that switched the power from the NCAA to the conferences. And so now here we are again in 2026, looking at situations where, again, I think, again, if you follow the money, TV is the one place where they think, again, the revenues are going to be coming in that will help solve a lot of these self-inflicted problems that the industry's brought on itself through the House settlement and the $20 million and now NIL out of control. So again, this TV revenue seems to be not low-hanging fruit, but certainly fruit out there that there is more value for live sports in this day and age in terms of entertainment needs and that the fan base wants to see. So I can certainly see that if they go to 24, there will be more television revenue coming into that, despite the concerns of weakening the regular season. Those things all need to be discussed through the process too. There are probably ways to figure all that out. But again, I do think, again, more inventory will create more revenue opportunities.
Well, two questions, John. Two questions. First of all, does Fox call all the shots for the Big Ten? And secondly, how about the SEC championship game?
Well, I mean, Sankey's made it very clear he wants to keep the SEC championship game in there, and I think again, the latest I saw him against they're in Destin this week on the other, up on the western part of Florida, was again he has a contract. ABC wants that game. It does a great ratings, boost. It was been a tremendous hit for these conferences that put a championship game in place over the years. So again, in this new world order, though, again, a championship game fits in a 12 or 2 or 4 or 12 or 16, playoff scenario. Probably at 24, it gets a little wonky, in that process and where it fits in and how do they administer it appropriately in light of everything else that's going on. So I think, again, Sankey's leaning into the fact that they have a contract for that. And I do think, again, at the end of the day, not every, again, this is something that I think that will evolve over time. But if you go to any major Power 5, Power 2 school, is when they ever win a conference championship, they celebrate that. They recognize it. I mean, we got to go back to 1999 to celebrate the last conference championship that A&M has. Now, will it be easier for us to get into the playoffs and celebrate? Oh yeah, we made the playoffs, in a 12 team, or playoff contenders in the, in if it's a 24 team. So more teams can probably get into that and create watches and rings and other celebratory opportunities for that. But I think, again, the old school would be tell you is that there is some value to earning a championship on the field. Going back to Sankey's point, it's not a tournament style sport. Again, you earn it on the field over the course of basically 6 months, but when you start spring ball, getting all the way to the finish line.
Couple of things adjacent to this. Is this also a matter, John, of who wants to be the big dog and the leader between Sankey and Petitti?
I'm sure they're always jockeying for that. And again, you can see that there's not been a lot of agreement on a lot of things between those two conferences as time goes on. And I think some of it's trying to exert that, public perception and private perception of who's really in charge here. And I think, again, if you look at on the field performances recently, at least in the major revenue sports, the Big Ten is certainly, can kind of lay claim to their ability from basketball and football championships, even women's basketball championships. And so there's got to be some of that comes into play. But here you got two superpowers trying to figure out what's best for them. And again, you've got TV partners that are very important to them at the end of the day, and they're going to they're going to listen very closely to those TV partners on what they want. And I think, again, ESPN's happy with the current configuration. They have those rights. They have cost certainty for those games that they have coming up for the next several years. They're already trying to figure out what's going to happen with the NFL if they reopen their agreements. And I think, again, that creates more stress on all of these networks, particularly the legacy linear companies like ESPN, who are trying to make that transition now into the digital world and be more of a player like Netflix and Prime and YouTube versus the legacy medias like Fox, which is broadcast, they lean on it. But ABC has a tremendous amount of broadcast, elements in their mix too. So, but again, I think, again, if you peel through all the layers, I mean, these TV networks do have a lot of say on how this process goes. And I think, again, Fox certainly wants to see, when their partners want to see the Big Ten, get more games to create more inventory. And I think, again, ESPN's happy where they are, and the SEC has a pretty strong school top to bottom, and with a 9-game conference schedule right there, I mean, one of the things you're hearing people talk about, well, Texas lost to 4-8 Florida. Well, okay, 4-8 Florida is still a pretty darn good team, but they play in the conference. If they were in the Big Ten, I doubt they would have been 4-8 last year. So those are all kinds of things again that come up into this process, and it's hard to kind of create one blanket statement that will solve it all. But I do think again there will be a general. I think that you're going to see a general, movement toward a larger playoff, just simply because it's going to create more inventory.
Andrew, let me ask you, Andrew, this question. You're very close to the players because you talk to them a lot, pre and post games. Let's don't forget about who is involved here. The 24-game postseason is going to put a lot more stress on the student athletes regarding how long they go into January, but also the potential for injury, keeping a championship game, keeping it going there, and their prospects if they're seniors or at least being drafted by the NFL. How do you see that working with the student athlete who's the workhorse here, but I don't hear much from them about is it 16 or 12 or 24, and how does that play against their both stress as well as their prospects for a future career as a pro?
Yeah, interesting. If they get a chance to play for a championship, they will. Like you talk about, it's an extra week when you go into the college football playoff. No, they were prepared to play 4 games there and get to South Florida and play in that championship game. You make a very interesting point because what we're seeing time and time again, Dr. Loftin, is there are some players who protect themselves in the NFL and they make their decision even before a bowl game or the postseason. They're making their decision maybe in November and they pull themselves out and protect themselves for the NFL. I would think that a scout would really like to see how a player does in a postseason. And again, we're not talking about all 130 college football teams going into this playoff. It's going to be the select 24 or 16. But I think when there's a chance to win a championship, the players are all for it. I think this is yet another example of, are we going to find the effects somewhere down the line about all of this? Because to your point, Dr. Loftin, it is a year-round sport now. It didn't used to be. It is now, because then there's not really an off season. You still can rest the body, but there's so much. I think that's intriguing as heck. It's a good point. John, I wanted to bring up to you with the NFL. There used to be the old agreement of when college football ended, then the NFL moved their games to Saturday. They would have their special Saturday games. And I know that the NFL is basically playing on any day as you get into December. Will it harm any of the agreements or would-be agreements with Fox, and if CBS is part of this, and ESPN for their NFL deals along with these NCAA deals?
Well, I think not harm is probably not the right word, but I think what it does is create some more scheduling, situations where how do you manage these games coming in and out of the process. And so I think, again, in the Sports Broadcasting Act back in 1961, one of the provisions they put in back then, the schedules, it basically were over by Thanksgiving weekend or the first Saturday in December. And they basically said that's when the NFL could start putting games on Saturdays and Fridays, because then high school and colleges were basically over for that point, except for the bowl games. So that was one of the provisions that was put in that agreement to protect, those sports from being overrun or being influenced potentially by NFL games. Today, don't know if it means that much at the end of the day, but I think it's still an important provision out there. And I think, again, as there's so many eyeballs out there watching, how do you try to match up those eyeballs so that you can get, whatever your entity is, gets the most eyeballs? The NFL's done a great job leveraging that and creating new games and packages to sell to their new digital partners primarily. But, again, I think the college guys, I think, have the same capability to do that as well. I don't know if we talked it on our show, but again, there's a potential scenario where, the Big Ten and the SEC could get together and go to Netflix and said, we're going to sell you a rivalry game of the week. So they have the Netflix rivalry game each week, which would probably be a pretty big number. And for for Netflix, it has that kind of eventization process where it's a big event. They don't necessarily want the full season of college sports, but that's a big game that would generate eyeballs on a weekly basis. So there are opportunities out there to create that if, again, when the SEC and Big Ten work together. And I think, again, that's been something that's been challenging for both Greg and Tony is how do they really get together and figure this stuff out when all of their constituents are kind of looking at it through different lenses? If I'm Purdue or I'm Northwestern, I need more money now.
Right.
What's the best way for me to get more money is let's create more inventory because we have seen that playbook work in the past. If I'm the SEC right now, hey, we just went to 9 games. Let us figure out what that looks like before we start, wanting to tweak the process again. And I think he's looking for data points. And again, to Greg's credit, he's trying to be a little bit more strategic and thoughtful through this process versus, reactive to the process of creating more inventory, making more games. And again, I think it will, but how much more strategically how can you maximize that process? And again, I think his TV partners are whispering in his ear, hey guys, you got a pretty good deal. We're showcasing you on. And if you looked last year at the overall ratings for most watched games, I mean, ESPN had 80% of the college football eyeballs. Fox is looking to try to do, if they can get more of those marquee games, that's obviously going to give them more access to those eyeballs, which creates more revenue opportunities for their network.
Were either of you surprised when Greg Sankey said we're not playing on Fridays?
I'm a veteran here. I'll never forget when he called me. Well, I should say when Mike called me one day, Greg was in the background and said, guess what? Missouri gets a Thursday game.
That's right.
That was a real challenge because you guys have been to Missouri. I think you understand the stadium is on the south end of the campus, right next to a major hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to get Thursday parking, you have no idea how complicated that was for the university to deal with. So I was chancellor there when we had the pleasure of sort of being one of the early Thursday night games for the SEC. Thank God that's gone.
Yeah. John, I'm old enough to remember the excitement when Musco came on campus for the lighting for the stadiums that didn't have the lights for the night games.
Yeah. That was a big deal. You're right. But again, those are points that Dr. Loftin makes that are valid because, again, if you had a Friday night game at A&M, and let's just say that's, again, we almost had that problem last year with graduation during the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Again, from a logistical nightmare that would have been for the city of College Station and Bryan to fight through all that and for A&M.
Nice problem to have, though.
Well, those are good problems to have. Yeah,
I know.
In the world of problems, those are the ones you want. They're solvable. Yeah.
Czar Monaco.
That's
all sees all. I see
that's
now.
Right.
Yeah.
Late night show.
That's right. That's exactly right.
But for me, I would rather that creates me problems getting to my preferred parking spot, and I'll just probably watch the game on television at that point.
That's exactly
I can't
right.
believe that, John, about you watching on television. I can't believe that about you.
Hey everyone, David Nuno here of TexAgs Live. I want to introduce you to the team at Holistic Planning. Got Jason Barber here, Taylor Pankratz, and also Paul Meredith. Jason, I want to start off with you. What really sets Holistic Planning apart from the others?
Yeah, so what makes us different is most financial advisors stop at investment management. On the other hand, Holistic Planning, we manage investments, taxes, and estate planning all on one team, all underneath one roof.
Now, Taylor, when everything is coordinated like that, it really helps the bottom line, doesn't it?
It really does. When your investments and taxes are working together, you stop leaving money on the table and keep more of what's yours.
Paul, Holistic Planning is trying to expand as well.
That's true. We just opened our Houston office, and we're looking for people who feel like their advisor isn't seeing the full picture, because that's exactly what we fix.
And Jason, there's other opportunities beyond that.
Definitely. If you're a financial advisor and you want to join the Holistic Planning team, we're looking to add 50 teams in the next 5 to 10 years. So check out holisticplanning.com/advisors.
All right, so if you want a team that actually coordinates everything, go to holisticplanning.com. Aggies, this one is worth it.
Dr. Loftin, another point that you wanted to bring up, I guess, with there's been some denials in the NIL, including with Nebraska specifically was one. Things, again, that we're all kind of figuring out as we go along.
It is. Let me just give you some numbers to start with here. This is as of April 30 of this year, okay? Less than a year into the house world, okay? The College Sports Commission has so far cleared 26,556 deals worth $242.35 million, while they have denied 1,153 deals valued at $56.17 million. to give you the context of what's going on here, this is now less than a year after House, with the CSC functioning now on a very regular basis. But recently, they have been challenged on denials. Most famously, most recently by Nebraska, who came up and said, we have, I think it's 18 NIL contracts here that you denied us. We think we deserve them. And they went to arbitration, which is provided for in the House settlement. Interestingly, our friends at Playfly Max were the target here. The CSC declared Playfly Max to be a affiliated organization, just like a collective would be, even though they have many schools and they do a lot of different kind of things. Playfly Max specifically, and we had a while back the leader of that organization on this show, has come along and said, we are not. Yet the arbitrator said they were, and these 18 contracts were denied. Now, you hear various things. I'm hearing that the rest has come back with modified deals that they think will pass muster with the CSC, and we'll see. Meanwhile, there are 3 other groups of cases which have been aggregated by the CSC for additional arbitration. They've already made a decision on them. They're now going to step 2, which is arbitration. What I'm waiting for, guys, is another lawsuit. Hasn't happened quite yet, but that's likely to happen at some point down the road here as we continue down this process of figuring out what NIL really means and how do we apply it in a case-by-case basis. I'll remind you, the courts have been extremely favorable towards the student athlete. They have been very favorable to them and less so to the schools, the NCAA, the conferences, et cetera here. So I'm interested to see what happens here going forward. But for the moment, Nebraska got denied, but they say they're coming back with proposals to change the mind of the CSC with new contract terms, and we'll see where that goes. Meanwhile, there'll be more arbitration, and I'm predicting, I think safely so, lawsuits.
I joked in earlier episodes about I'm going to start another podcast of unintended consequences. I think I'm going to start a third one. Where's the leadership? Isn't this what this all comes down to in athletics at the moment? And I know we have Charlie Baker and I know we have the commissioner. And does it come down to this leadership? Because now it's almost petulant. I'm not getting my way. I'm going to the courts. Whether it's NIL, whether it's I'm gambling, whether it's I want to have this player come in, if it's Bediako or Sorsby. Is it because of a void of leadership in college athletics that we are on this rocky road?
I think so very much. The NCAA has been very ineffective under 3 different leaders. You can argue the current leader is a nice guy and very skilled politician, but I don't see all the results from that right now. The 2 before him are failed clearly in terms of leadership, because had they led place today, had they led the NCAA to the right place in settlements rather than court cases, we'd be in a different world today, is my prediction. Can't prove it, but I mean, that's where I see we'd have been. Meanwhile, what do we have? We have 4 power conferences. We have 2 super conferences jockeying for position. We've already talked about that today. If you read what the Iowa State AD just said a few days ago, he came out very vociferously saying, let them go. Let the Big Ten and the SEC go, do their own thing. Let the rest of us figure it out and proceed with our lives here. That's probably a little extreme for some, but I mean, that's the feeling among people in the ACC and the Big 12 right now, and probably what's left of the pack and the group and so on. They're out there saying, why can't we have a say in this right now? You've sort of devolved to a point where 2 conferences seem to be in charge. If both can't agree, nothing gets done, which is the case we just talked about. And here we are. But I do think leadership is a key missing factor right now, Andrew. Thank you for bringing it up.
Yeah.
We don't have anybody who's really stood up and said, let's figure this out, guys. I mean, Mike Sly was that kind of guy. He was quiet behind the scenes, but he got things done. He created the four teams conference playoff was his idea, not because he thought it was the right number. It was a number he could get done. And so he got the 4 done because he said, this is workable. We need to go to at least 12 on the road here. He understood that. The man is gone, RIP. But at the same time, he understood. And he led in a quiet, firm, intelligent way to bring some degree of order from the chaos we were experiencing then. No one like that has stood up.
Jon, that's a leadership thing that Dr. Loftin just said about Mike Slive. This is what we can get done. You can have all these principles, but if we want it, it's almost the equivalent of politics and reaching across the aisle, correct? If you can get it done, let's take that avenue. So we're not just spinning wheels.
Yeah, and I think, again, he realized that maybe whatever he wanted to do, if he maybe wanted a 12 team back then, he realized he wasn't going to get it. I can get enough votes for 4. Let's go with 4, and then we'll live to fight another day, because that's going to be good for the industry moving it forward. I do think, again, with all of the issues swirling around the industry right now, like, where do you start? And I think Jamie speaks for a lot of ADs out there, because, again, this problem's been going on now for the last 3 years, all right? Once the Big Ten and SEC got to where they were, and I think there's been conversations. We've had guests on the show who said, hey, break away, do your own thing. That's what it's going to probably have to take if you guys want to play at this level with this kind of budgets. I mean, I saw a note the other day, just that, again, the minimum, we've all talked about, the minimum guarantee for all sports was 20 million. Football, they said at the minimum it's now 30, and if you're really going to compete, it's 50. And again, nobody knows that because there's no transparency in that process, and that's part of the governance issue there too. Hey, we all want rules, but then the first thing once we get them is how do we all circumvent them? So it's just hard, and I think, again, it feels like these commissioners and Greg it's that great scene from Animal House where Kevin Bacon, all is well, remain calm, and the whole community is running him over, and that's kind of feels what we're having in the space right now. And I think, again, to Dr. Loftin's point, and your point too, is who's going to help fill that void? I think, again, I think Greg's trying to do that right now by saying, hey, let's not all run willy-nilly to 24. Let's stop. Let's be thoughtful about it. But again, he's getting pressure. I think there are probably schools in his own conference who won't maybe say it publicly, but would welcome 24 just because that means, hey, I'm getting more TV money. Great. I got it. I need that. And again, there's schools like A&M and some of these others who may not need all that TV money because they've got other resources to get it. But I think, again, the lion's share aren't that fortunate. And so, again, that TV money is going to be the lifeline for these guys to be able to kind of keep spending at the clip that they're needing to spend right now. Or at least they think it's going to be that.
Yeah. And the coaches voted for it for the most part. If they make the playoff, they get job security. And as we talked last episode, we saw that leash getting shorter last year.
No, I guarantee you Jimmy Sexton's going to have a clause. Hey, if I make the playoffs, that's a 25% bonus. And so that's another moneymaker for these guys. Because, again, if you're in the SEC or Big Ten and you finish in the top 8, you should probably be in that tournament. Right. So, again, is that you're rewarding mediocrity for a 500 record.
Yeah. Yeah, it used to be you got 15 more practice days in a bowl game.
Yeah.
now
the bowl games are good because they were fun for the kids. It wasn't,
yes.
Now you're going to be, again, it's to that point. Not everybody's going to play 16 games or whatever the number is, but whatever that school does, do that. And if they have to do it multiple years in a row, probably going to have some wear and tear on those kids when you go back and look at 10 years from now and see, how they're handling certain things.
Yeah.
Jon, question for you here. The 24 games, okay? Some of those games are going to be less interesting than others. So what's it worth? I mean, what's it worth to a Fox to come in and get some of these preliminary games, these early games in the 2014 playoff here that people may not watch very, very diligently? I mean, how do you see this shaking out? 24 gives you the potential, if not the reality, of having at least a few games that aren't that interesting.
No, I come from the school of is if you created more opportunities for regular season games, and again, you switched out the Abilene Christians and the Sam Houstons for Michigan State and USC, that's going to be a much better, you're going to make more revenue doing that, more TV eyeballs. It's going to create more value for that. You could probably still do that in a 24-team, playoff again, how you manufacture it. If you're a TV person, you're looking at it and saying, okay, do I want James Madison playing
exactly
Yeah, so probably not. But if James Madison's playing Indiana and Indiana is now that school, you've got the brand that you want through that process. So people will tune in to watch Indiana, though that game might be one of the sisters of the poor type of scores there. But what you're hoping is that you're going to get some more of those matchups that are going to be meaningful through that process. You're going to ideally have more brand names. I mean, everybody would have been dying to get Texas in the tournament last year. Whatever network would have ended up with a Texas game if they'd have made that slot would have been big for them. And Notre Dame too. So those are things that I think again that networks look at. Hey, I'll take the James Madisons if I'm going to get a Notre Dame or a Texas or another Michigan or Ohio State, because those brands still will resonate even if the game's not going to be that great.
So a football NIT, so we can get those who don't make.
Well, I mean,
Tournament.
Wasn't the highest rated game last fall the Texas-Michigan game, and it might have even beat one of the early round games because it was the two brands playing in the whatever it was, Citrus Bowl, Orlando Bowl, wherever it was. So again, I still tell you guys the joke. We would sit there, we had the rights to the Cotton Bowl, and we're sitting there when I was at Fox, we weren't Fox yet, we were Prime. We had the rights to the Cotton Bowl. We're meeting with the head of Fox Sports, and he goes, "All right, for the Cotton Bowl, these are the must-haves. I want no states and no Tex. So whatever that is, I'll take everybody else." But if Oklahoma State and Texas Tech had won that championship, they wanted nothing to do with it.
How about that?
Yeah,
that brand before brands.
Brand,
right?
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Give me the brand.
Yeah, with a bowl that has a stellar reputation.
Yeah.
But that's one of the reasons why, is it not, John?
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
So they won. Once Fox did their first bowl game, every producer wanted to be on that deal because they were treated like kings when they were there.
Yeah.
You're there for a weekend game. We'd rather do this than an NFL game. Put us on it.
Right. Dr. Loftin, switching gears and talking about fan experience. Fanatics and American Express are teaming up.
Do you have your card, sir?
Don't leave home without it.
I mean,
membership has its privileges.
I am fascinated by the monetization of so many things here. Fanatics is a be all end all to some extent. They've got control of the card market now. Collectibles are becoming part of their central mission as well. But to add to the list, they've now partnered with Amex to be able to get an American Express Fanatics branded card, and they're going to get some money out of that clearly. And oddly, I looked at the data here, and Amex says 80% of their card holders are sports fans. Think about that, 80% are sports fans. Now, this is not just college; this is pro and everything else out there mixed together. But it just gives you a sense of monetization has no limits, as far as I can tell. And you find these clever people figuring out new ways to get a dollar out of a fan, even though they already make lots of dollars out of the fans. So I just find that interesting to have cards branded now with something like Fanatics.
Well, here's the real reason Fanatics is probably doing that too, is it now opens up another level of data points that they may not have access to through their fandom, that they're now having the Amex data bank that they can work with and do cross-promotional things to get that data points on people who may not be avid fans, but casual fans, and how to move into that avid fan world. So again, at some point in time, you're going to see the people who have the most data points, or data collectible capabilities are going to be the ones that are going to, be pretty high up that world. At one point, I thought Fanatics wanted to buy all the regional sports networks back there, and I thought that was a brilliant move for them to do that. But the league wouldn't give them the digital rights, so they passed on it. And again, they wanted those data points to be able to know who their fans were, and those local, hometown market fans are the most avid. If they had all of that data points, what that could have done for them for all of their other business lines. Think about sports gambling, that they were involved in at that point. The merchandise, and again, they still have the best sports betting promotion out there. Even when you lose, you win, because if you lose so much money, they're going to give you that a credit back and to go buy other Fanatic stuff. Yeah. So that's something that the other guys can't bring to the table. So they, I think over time, as data continues to, as more and more people understand the value of that data, Fanatics is in a pretty good place.
Yeah, data is
John,
king,
what's the balance of your fan cash right now?
Yeah. Well, no,
fan cashes their
the other day I tried to
way
pay
to give
cash.
you priority points, basically.
So I'm trying to tip a guy at the hotel. And nobody has cash. Everybody's got credit cards. Anybody got cash anywhere? I mean, it was like, here's my Venmo. I'm not going to Venmo a guy a tip.
Right. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Tap
No one
your
has
card.
everybody has
Card.
credit cards. So
Yeah.
again, no one has cash anymore. So
No, absolutely not. This was fun. Enjoyed talking with you again. 90. We're at 90.
Before we get out, and speaking of tips, don't tip the IRS. We've got
No, Jason Barber tells us that at Holistic Planning.
Because in our next show, we've got to talk about what I think Mississippi's trying to pass a rule is that all their NI deals will be non-taxable so that they can compete with the other states. That's going to be one of the things that are part of the Mississippi
that's a big step there, a real big step forward. So guys, we need to figure this out. I've been working hard trying to figure out what the real NIL numbers are. And it's just very
good luck. I was just thinking the same thing, John. Good
difficult.
luck. Yeah.
You look around, lots of folks are prognosticating about this. But I do think if we can get Jason Penry on the show sometime soon. Jason is becoming a consultant of note in the NIL world. And he is sort of, very, very agnostic about things. And he might be able to give us some insights into what's going on there. So I'm looking forward to having a few guests on the show coming up here that can really help us pull back the veil a little bit and see how much money really is flowing here. And the confusion between revenue sharing and NIL is still very, very,
very murky line.
So no one untangle. So you don't want to bring in Sliced Brad, who said 30 million a couple years ago? That's not an expert that you.
Funny thing is, now looking back, he was probably right.
I think 30 may be the floor right now for some of the conferences, including our own.
Isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth? Guys, have a great day. This was a blast. Thank you so much.
Baseball, sir. Enjoy baseball.
We do that. John, enjoy that beautiful coast of Florida.
Oh, I don't know how you ever left here, Andrew.
I wasn't on Naples.
I got Orlando,
and I needed that job to be able to afford. Naples didn't have an NBA team at the time.
Yeah, but
I could have lived with Jack Ramsey though.
But you still had water on the Riverwalk, so it was still water.
That's exactly right. Dr. Loftin,
wife,
John
Andrew, you have a wife. Okay, don't forget about that.
Oh, I don't forget. Best of both of you. Cade Bickham, thank you very much. He's in for Nick Savage. And as John had mentioned, Jason Barber, and all the folks at Holistic Planning as well for making this episode of College Sports Follow the Money absolutely what we can bring to you. I'm Andrew Monaco. We thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time. So long, everybody.